And not for the first time, almost beaten by the lack of pace on serve. So victory for Alexandra Eala.
There are players who arrive at a tournament, and there are players who arrive at a tournament. And if you were watching the Linz Open today, you already know exactly which category Alex belongs to, because what she did on that clay court was not just a first-round win. It was the kind of performance that makes the entire draw stop and take notice. The kind of match where you find yourself watching somebody move and compete and think quietly that this person is built differently. And the opponent on the other side of the net today was not some pushover, not some wild card filler. Julia Grabher is a real player, a quality player, and more than that, she was the local favorite, the crowd's player, the one the home fans had come to see do something special. And when you walk into that kind of environment as the visitor, as the outsider, as the one the crowd is rooting against, lesser players shrink. Lesser players feel it. You can see it in their body language, the tight shoulders, the rushed decisions, the eyes that keep drifting to the stands instead of staying locked in on the ball. But Alex didn't shrink at all. She walked onto that court like she owned it, like the noise and the energy, and the crowd behind Grabher was just background music, something she'd already accounted for before she even got to the venue. And from the very first point of this match, you could feel that she had a plan, a clear and specific plan, and she was going to stick to it regardless of what the scoreboard said, or what the crowd was doing, or whether Grabher was playing well or struggling, because that is something about Alex that you to understand if you really want to appreciate what she brings to every single match she plays. She is not reactive. She is not a player who adjusts based on emotion or crowd pressure or a bad game here and there. She walks in with a blueprint and she executes it. And today that blueprint was on full display from the moment the match began. Now, the first set of this match was genuinely fascinating to watch because it told a very specific story about both of these players. Alex came out quick. She took the first 2 points of the match and set the tone immediately. The message was clear. I am here, I am switched on, let's go. But here's the thing about Grabher. She didn't panic, she didn't fold, she didn't let those early points rattle her. She steadied herself, she leaned on the crowd, she started finding her game, and she clawed her way back until this first set was sitting at 3 games all, right in the balance. And this is the moment I want you to pay attention to, because this is where the match turned, because at 3-all, with the crowd growing louder, with Grabher riding the momentum and the energy of the home support, something shifted in Alex. Not in a desperate way, not in a panic, but in the way that truly elite competitors shift when they decide the time for patience is over. She raised her level, not by a little, by a lot. And she did it with this incredible calmness that almost doesn't make sense given the stakes. Every single game from that point on was a battle. Grabher made her work for every point, but Alex found a way through each time. She was constructing rallies with real intelligence. She was putting the ball in the right places. She was forcing Grabher into positions where the only options available were difficult ones. And she closed out that first set 6-4. And when it was done, it felt decisive. It felt like more than just a set. It felt like the match had already been decided, even though there was still a whole second set to play. And that feeling turned out to be completely accurate, because the second set was where Alex just took over entirely. She came out in the second set like she was on a mission, 3 games in quick succession, bang, bang, bang. And suddenly Grabher was chasing the match rather than competing in it. And to her enormous credit, Grabher did not give up. She never stopped fighting, the crowd never stopped believing, and for a stretch in that second set she started to find something. She started to cut into the deficit. She started to make it feel like maybe she could drag this thing back and make it a real contest again. And you could feel the energy in the arena shift slightly, the crowd getting louder, Grabher getting bolder. And there was a moment where you thought, okay, maybe this is going to get interesting. Maybe Alex is going to have to really dig in here. But that moment passed very quickly, because Alex simply closed the door. She didn't panic, she didn't rush. She just raised her level at exactly the right time, found another gear that Grabher simply couldn't match, and closed out the second set 6-3. And when the match was over, the scoreline told the story perfectly: dominant, convincing, authoritative. This was not a scrappy survival job. This was not Alex squeaking through on the back of a few lucky points. This was a genuine quality performance on clay. And that matters, because coming into this clay season, a lot of people were watching carefully to see how Alex would adapt, because she had been playing predominantly on hard courts, and the transition to clay is never automatic. Clay changes everything. It slows the ball down. It rewards patience and construction and physical endurance in a way that hard courts simply do not. And some players who are brilliant on hard courts arrive on clay and just look slightly off, slightly uncomfortable, like they're playing in someone else's shoes. So everyone was watching to see which version of Alex we'd get on the dirt, and the answer she gave today was emphatic. She looked completely at home. Her movement was fluid and natural. Her footwork was sharp. She was sliding into the right positions. She was constructing points with the kind of intelligence and structure that the clay surface rewards. And there was not a single moment in the match where you could point to the screen and say she looks uncomfortable. She looks like she's fighting the surface. It just didn't happen, and that is both impressive and slightly alarming for the rest of the draw, because if Alex is moving like that and competing like that in round one, then the players further into the tournament have a real problem on their hands. And here is the thing that I find most interesting about watching Alex on clay. Specifically, her game is built around controlled aggression. She doesn't just bash the ball and hope. She builds pressure methodically. She puts the ball deep. She moves her opponent around. She waits for the right moment, and then she attacks, and that style of play is perfectly suited to clay, maybe even more suited to clay than to the hard courts where she's already been so successful, because on clay you have time to build those patterns. The rallies are longer, the ball sits up a little more, the whole game slows down just enough for a player like Alex to impose her structure and her intelligence on proceedings. And today against Grabher we saw that in almost every single rally, she was never in a hurry. She was never trying to force anything. She was just building and building and building until Grabher had nowhere left to go. And when the match was done and both players were at the net, what happened next was one of those moments that reminds you why sport at its best is genuinely beautiful, because Alex was gracious in a way that felt completely real. She took time to genuinely acknowledge what Grabher had brought to the match. She spoke about the quality of her opponent with real warmth and real respect. And if you've watched enough post-match interviews, you can tell the difference between a player who is going through the motions of sportsmanship and a player who actually means what they're saying. And Alex meant every single word. She looked at Grabher and she recognized a fellow competitor who had given everything on the court, and she honored that. And it's a quality that her fans have come to love about her, because it's consistent. It's not situational. She's gracious when she wins easily, and she's gracious when she wins a war, and she's gracious in defeat as well. She has a genuine respect for the game and for the people who play it that shines through every time she speaks. And then came the moment that completely broke the internet among her supporters. Because after the on-court formalities were done, Alex turned to her fans, specifically to the Filipino fans who were in the crowd, the ones who had traveled or gathered to support her, and she spoke to them in Filipino. She addressed them in their language. She thanked them. She acknowledged them. And if you've ever been part of a crowd where a player speaks to you in your own language, you will know exactly what that moment feels like. It's not a small thing. It's actually a huge thing, because it says, I see you, I know who you are, I know what it took for you to be here, and I want you to know that it means everything to me. And the reaction in that arena was exactly what you'd expect, pure joy. And the thing about Alex is that this is not a PR move. This is not a calculated moment designed to generate good press. This is just who she is. The connection she has with her fans is genuine, and it goes both ways. They give her everything and she gives it right back. And it makes watching her story unfold feel like something more than just watching tennis. It feels like watching someone carry the hopes and the love of an entire community every time she walks onto a court, and that is a weight that not every player can handle. But Alex doesn't just handle it. She seems to draw strength from it. She seems to use it as fuel, and you can see it in the way she plays. There is always something playing for more than herself. And then she told her fans to come back tomorrow. And the reason tomorrow matters is enormous, because tomorrow Alex Eala faces Jelena Ostapenko. And before we even get into what that matchup means tactically, we need to talk about the history between these two players, because the context is everything here. When they met previously, the script was already written before a single ball had been struck. Ostapenko was the established name, the powerful, aggressive baseliner with the kind of game that causes problems for almost anyone. She was in good form. She was confident. And on paper this was supposed to be a routine win for the Latvian, the kind of first-round result that you circle in advance and move on from. Alex was the underdog, the younger player, the one with less experience at that level, and the expectation was that she would compete but probably come up short. But nobody told Alex about that script. Or maybe she read it and decided she wasn't interested, because what she did in that match was extraordinary. She fell 4 points behind in the first set, not slightly behind, 4 points behind, staring down a deficit that would have finished most players at that stage of their development. A deficit that would have triggered that voice in the back of the head that says it's okay. You gave it a go. She's just better than you today. And the vast majority of players in that situation would have let the set go, regrouped, tried to make a match of it in the second, but Alex didn't do that. She stayed in the first set. She stayed in every single point. She played like the score didn't exist, like the only thing that mattered was the next ball, and she clawed her way back from 4 points down to force a tiebreak. And in that tiebreak, she was ice cold. She played every point like she'd been here 100 times before, and she took it 7 points to 6, and the shock in that arena was palpable because nobody had expected this. Nobody had seen this coming, and Ostapenko is a player who can get rattled. She wears her emotions on her sleeve. She's physically and mentally aggressive, and when things go against her, you can see it. And losing that first set in a tiebreak after being 4 points up hit her hard, and Alex felt that shift, and she went for it. She came out in the second set with even more conviction. She built herself a 4-point lead and looked like she was about to close it out. But Ostapenko is a fighter, and she wasn't going to go quietly. She clawed her way back. She leveled the set. She forced the tension right back into the match. And this is where it gets really interesting, because this is the moment in a match where you find out who someone really is. When you've had the lead and someone has taken it away from you, and suddenly the pressure is equal, and both players are staring at each other across the net, and everything is on the line. Alex didn't crack. She didn't rush. She didn't try to do too much. She just kept playing her game, kept executing her plan, kept trusting what had gotten her to that point, and she found a way through. She took the second set 7-6 as well, and when that match was over, the tennis world paid attention in a way it hadn't quite before, because beating Ostapenko in straight sets in that fashion at that stage of her career was not